couple of weeks ago, I heard something of a twist, a corrective really, to the way Luke's telling of the birth story has been conveyed to us. It concerns this one phrase: she laid him in a manger, and there was no place for them in the inn. Well, the places we have gone in our imaginations and in our Christmas pageants with that one phrase. Maybe you yourself have been assigned the role of the innkeeper in a pageant along the way. The person who's wakened out of a deep sleep in the middle of the night, disturbed for no reason because he's got no room in his hotel. Can't they read? No vacancy. So he directs them to a place out back, a barn, a shed, where now we've got Mary giving birth unaided in this crude animal shelter. Though we tend to warm that up a bit with the glow of a lantern and the warmth of those animal bodies and the sweet smelling of hay. And while Bev reminds me that barns can indeed be places of peace and where care and companionship can indeed be shared, it turns out that in Luke's telling of the story, for all the prominence that we have given the innkeeper, there is no reference whatsoever of an innkeeper or a barn. What there is, I recently discovered, is the kataluma. That's the Greek word we've translated into the English word inn. In first century Palestine, most people would be living in a single room structure that had a second room on the top or a kind of a rooftop shelter. That's the kataluma. A separate space above the family's living space. No room in the kataluma means the Airbnb is already filled. So what about the manger? While our imagination takes us to an outbuilding, it was common to have a space within, not separate from, the household, where the animals would be brought in at night for warmth. And a small step up from there would be the fireplace, the cooking area, the place where people ate and visited and slept, and where babies would be born. On the step itself is the manger, keeping the animals where they are and fed. Well, had Jesus been born back home, it likely would have been the same setup, except that the birth would have happened among Mary's people, where here in Bethlehem she is among Joseph's people. The difference with the birth being here rather than back home is the company. Not that theme of hostility, but rather a kind of widening hospitality. Here we have Jesus being born in the company of Joseph's clan, surrounded by the hospitality of strangers who receive and recognize him as kin. Well, imagine this way. We have a story about a family who doesn't have room in their kataluma, but are nevertheless saying yes to a young, far from home, frightened woman who is about to give birth. Faced with her at the door, of course they bring her in. And as Padre Gotuma suggests, the men then step outside to have a smoke or two, check their phones, making room for the women to assist with the birth as the women do. Imagine this way, the story of Jesus' birth is one of hospitality, a story of ordinary people offering what they have, as little as it is, and yet it is fully enough. So with all of this in mind, we might wonder, how would we rework our pageants? And how would we recreate our nativity scenes? That's part of it. Another part, of course, is to wonder what the story is inviting us to notice about our own practice of hospitality. Meanwhile, that is the very practice that is being so challenged by this COVID time, where the restrictions for the sake of the common good would have us step away, protect ourselves from each other, close the door to each other. But you see, here's where another piece of the story speaks to us right now in this so-called second COVID Christmas. In Luke's telling of the story, the bigger context of Jesus' birth is this wielding of power by Emperor Augustus, who was all about gaining a bigger and bigger foothold, giving no thought to the welfare of the people, but rather is all about wreaking havoc in people's lives. And here's the wonder. It is through this invincible imperial power that love slips in and through the birth of Jesus. How imaginative, how devious, sure, let's call it that. How devious is that? Remembering that Jesus down the road is the one who encourages us to be wise as serpents, innocent as doves. What we have in this story, the story of this night, is God finding a way. Love slipping through the stranglehold of Rome's rule, in and through the birth of Jesus, who shows us a way of being, a way of living well with each other, that comes out of connecting with and quite literally bodying forth the abiding presence of love. It's not hard to miss the parallels, is it, between the sinister regime and the COVID virus, gaining more and more power, giving no thought to the welfare of people, all about wreaking havoc in people's lives. So where's the love slipping through, we might wonder? Where's that part of the story? Well, for how many years now has James Bay New Horizon welcomed people into their space on Christmas Day for dinner? And this year, because of COVID, of course there's no way. But is that the end of the story? No. Earlier today, between 9 this morning and 1 o'clock this afternoon, staff and volunteers at New Horizons were ready with packaged up Christmas dinner to deliver into the hands of 150 people. I'm guessing more than ever. Love slipping through. Tomorrow, Christmas Day, our own church building will open up as a warming center for people without housing, for as long as the temperatures are formidable enough for it making it hard to stay alive outside. COVID be damned. The City of Victoria staff and others have been getting ready for this, to be present as safely as possible, to welcome and support and offer nourishment, accompaniment, friendship to whoever comes to the door. In fact, people will be directed there. Interesting that it will be on Christmas Day, our congregation's home, a welcome space for those without a place. Now we've got love slipping through in all directions. You can see it, can't you? Love has found a way and is finding a way somehow, regardless. And there's evidence of it in every single one of us, every single time we experience in our guts how wrong it feels, how alien it feels, how against our better nature it feels to be stepping away from each other, protecting ourselves from each other. Isn't that the abiding presence of love that is woven into us all, rising up within us? Isn't it the abiding presence of love that moves us to imagine all kinds of workarounds that still enable us to extend our care, making a way for love to slip through? This, too, is the story, isn't it? Ordinary people resisting the oppressive ways of the empire, reaching through its displacing, life-destroying, community-destroying power to lend their aid, creating space, making a way for care to be shared, and life as it arrives to be safely delivered. It's the story of healthcare workers, isn't it? Making a way for love to slip through regardless. So now, what do our nativity scenes, our creches look like? Our pageants, our lives? Blessed be God, who finds a way, whether within us or in spite of us, to be born in us, by us, for the world.